Hey guys, this is Darron. You're about to watch a video from my full stack React Native course on Udemy. The course has a total of 5 projects ranging from beginner to expert. You will learn everything from styling to Redux to Node.js to Mongo Atlas to authentication. I am posting half of each project on YouTube. And if you like what you see, you can view the rest of the course on Udemy. And make sure you use the promo code GeekMODE. Take care. Okay guys, so before we build our news modal component, let's go ahead and clean up some of our styling. You may have noticed that the space on our right side of our card is larger than the space on the left side of our card. To fix that, let's go to our newsfeed styles.js file. We're going to change our width from 97% to 100%. Now if we refresh our emulator, now the space on each side of the card should be even. Within our thumbnail styles.js file, we're going to give our title the color of white. So add color, type in pound FFFFF, 6 Fs. Save your application, refresh your emulator. Okay, now everything's looking pretty now. Okay, and one last thing. Within our article component, I forgot to add our onPress function, onPress prop, and we're going to give it the value of onPress. Okay. We actually added our onPress prop type. We just forgot to use it. So make sure you save your application. Now, within your components folder, we're going to create a news modal directory. And just like our other components, we're going to create an index.js file and a styles.js file. Let's switch it up and take care of our styles first. Okay, our news modal is going to have a modal content style. Flex direction, flex will have the value of 1. Justify content will have the value of center. Padding top will have the value of 20. And background color, let's import our globals right now. Import all as globals. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this by now. Dot 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 slash dot 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 lib slash globals. Okay. We'll give our background color the value of globals dot colors dot background color. Now let's add our close button style. Padding vertical will have the value of 5. Padding horizontal will have the value of 10. And flex direction will have the value of row. All right, so that's it for our styling. Now let's build our news modal component. Type in import React from React import from React Native modal touchable opacity in our view component. Let's import our prop types from prop types. Let's import our small text component. And now let's import our styles. Our news modal will be a functional component. And let's not forget to export default, our component. All right, so let's type in props, and below we're going to destructure our props. Our news modal component will have the prop type of is news modal visible, which will be a boolean, a prop type of on modal close, which will be a function, and its third prop type will be is modal URL, which will be a string. The first component we're going to use is our modal component. Our modal has the animation type prop. For you guys who are familiar with mobile development, or I'm sure you guys have actually used Modal or any other app, but you can basically have your modal appear in any kind of way you want to do. You can have your modal fade in, or you can have your modal slide in. It's really up to you. For this application, instead of having our modal fade in, I'm going to have our modal slide into the foreground. Will our modal be transparent? No. So let's give it the value of false. Our onRequest close prop is actually going to utilize our onModal close property that we just created. Visible, which will be a boolean, its value is going to be is news modal visible. All right, and within our modal component, we're going to add our view component. Our view is going to have a touchable opacity component. And our touchable opacity component is going to have the small text component used between. Our small text will have the value of close. When the user presses that close button, our modal will basically close. So let's make sure we apply our styling that we just created. Add the style prop, type in styles dot modal content. Touchable opacity is going to have the on press prop, and its value will be on modal close. The style will take in styles dot close button. All right. Now, before we get carried away, we have to import a library. WebView, make sure you guys open your terminal and or within your project directory. Now, WebView used to be available through React Native, but it's on its way to being deprecated. Because of that, we have to import React Native WebView. So in your terminal, type in npm install -- save React Native WebView at version 5.12.0. Press enter. Once your dependency has finished installing, type in React Native link. Okay. Now, return back to your project and import WebView from React Native WebView. And beneath our touchable opacity component, we're going to add our WebView component. The prop we're going to use on our WebView is source. This is basically going to grab the URL that's attached to our article, and then when a person presses on that article, they'll be redirected to the website hosting that URL. So source brackets, curly brackets, URI, and its value will be is modal URL. Our news modal prop types are is news modal visible will be a boolean, and we'll set its value to is required. Our on modal close will be a function. We'll set its value to is required as well. And the same thing is going to be for our is modal URL. Prop type will be a string, and its value will be is required as well. Okay, everything looks good. Now let's go ahead and apply our news modal component to our newsfeed component. Let's import our news modal from news modal. All right. And let's set up our state first. So because we're using a class component, we actually have access to our component state and our lifecycle methods. We're not going to use our lifecycle methods, but we are going to use the state. Our state will have two values. Our is news modal visible value will be false. We want this to be false because by default the modal is set to true. So if we don't set our modal's value to false, when we refresh our screen, the emulator will automatically pop up without us even choosing the article. We don't want that to happen. Is modal URL, its default value will be undefined. As stated earlier, our is modal URL is going to grab our URL string and redirect us to a website hosting that URL. By default, we want it to be undefined, and we want this value to change when we select our article. We're going to have two functions applied to our newsfeed component. There's going to be our on modal open function and our on modal close function. In order to change the state of our application, we have to type in this dot set state. We have to, by default, our is news modal is set to false and our is URL set to undefined. When we want our article to open, we basically want to change these values, our is modal value to true because yes, our modal will be open, and our isModal URL is going to take the URL of our article. So let's add a URL parameter to our onModal function and add our URL parameter to our isModal key. And you can copy this code right here and apply it to our onModal close. And when its value is going to be the same as our default within our state, which is false, and our URL will be URL. Wait, sorry about that, it'll be undefined. Okay, looking good. Also, make sure that you add console log this.state. This is basically this code. This is our state, and type in this.state. I want you guys to get an idea how the state is used within our application. Okay. So at the bottom of our function of our component, we're going to add our isNewsModal component that we just created. Our isNewsModal visible prop is going to have the value of this.state that isNewsModal visible, which by default is set to false. Our isModal URL will copy the same, be about the same thing, this.state that isModal URL, and its value is undefined. Our onModal close will have the value of onModal close. Okay? And now, one last thing we need to do. We have to update the onPress parameter in our article component. We're going to delete our curly brackets. We're going to type in this dot onModal open. Remember, we have the URL parameter. And just like we did for our other props, we're going to type in article dot URL. We're typing in article.url because remember in our JSON that we created in the earlier video, we have a URL string. Okay? So if we save our application, because we imported WebView, we may have to restart our node server. So close it and run again npm start. Let's refresh our emulator. Let's enable our remote debugger and debug JS remotely. Load this. Now let's refresh our emulator. And by default, we can see our state's value. Our isModal URL is set to undefined, and our isModal visible's value is set to false right now. So when we select an article, our state is updated as well. Our isModal URL has changed from undefined to epicgames.com. And our newsModal visible has changed from false to true. And when we close our emulator, we should go back to our default state. And we have our isModal URL, its value is back to undefined, and our isModal visible is set to false. This is what we want to be showing our application right now. If you guys got stuck or encountered any kind of issues, feel free to send me an email. Catch you guys in the next video.